Welcome to Teaching Truth. My name is Glenn Cartwright. Next generation. That's the theme for our reflections this week, taken from Psalm 78, where we read that we will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. And throughout this week, we're looking at 4 exciting partnerships within the Bible where the older person within that partnership, in their own way, told the next generation, the younger person within the partnership, the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord and of how they decisively invested in the young person within that partnership. Now, you may be an older person listening to this today, and your responsibility is to invest in those who are younger in years. And if you're a younger person listening to this, and I'll leave you to decide whether you're young or you're a little bit older, your responsibility is to learn from those who are older in years. Remember that no generation has a monopoly on truth. We can learn together, and there needs to be that beautiful blend across the generations. We saw that yesterday as we looked at Moses and Joshua. Moses and Joshua. And today we're going to look at 2 more exciting Old Testament Bible characters. I refer, of course, to Elijah and Elisha. Let me give you again just a quick history into the life of these 2 exciting people. Nothing is known about Elijah's parents, but Elijah is one of the most unique and dramatic characters of Bible history. What we do know is that he first walks onto the stage of history before King Ahab to announce a drought. Beside a dried up brook miles from anywhere, Elijah during this time of drought has to rely on birds, on ravens to bring him food. We also see him begging for water and bread at Zarephath, where a widow is gathering sticks to cook her last meal. Elijah then raises, through prayer, her son who had died as a result of the drought. And after challenging the people and praying to God on Mount Carmel, the drought ends, but very soon after we find Elijah sitting under a broom tree in the wilderness, having fled from the wrath of Queen Jezebel, who was quite a woman. Discouraged and exhausted, he wants to die, but fed by an angel, he proceeds to Mount Horeb, where he seeks the Lord and is commanded to anoint 2 prospective kings and his own young successor, Elisha. And Elisha, what is he doing? Well, enter Elisha. Elisha is going about his everyday work. And what was that everyday work? Well, it was ploughing oxen in a field. Pretty ordinary work. And not much is written about Elisha's early life or background, but what is written is enough to tell us that he was a man of great spiritual energy, a man who spoke with authority, had spiritual vision, had incorruptible integrity, and who, when called, made 100% commitment. We read in 1 Kings 19:21 that Elisha literally burned his bridges behind him. He destroyed the oxen, the equipment, and set out to become Elijah's attendant. So having painted the picture to give context to Elijah and Elisha, let's read just a little bit from 2 Kings chapter 2 about that moment when Elisha inherited the cloak from Elijah. A very exciting and significant passage. 2 Kings 2:11. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the 2 of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. and Elisha saw him no more. Then he took hold of his own clothes and tore them apart. He picked up the cloak that had fallen from Elijah, went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. Then he took the cloak that had fallen from him and struck the water with it. When he struck the water, it divided to the right and to the left, and he crossed over. 3 things we want to share about Elijah and Elisha and relate them to where we are today, perhaps as an older person, perhaps as a younger person. First of all, Elijah welcomed Elisha. Now, following in the footsteps of any great leader is always a hard act to follow. It was John Major who, referring to his first cabinet meeting after the departure of his predecessor Margaret Thatcher, indicated to one of his advisors that he was not sure he could do the job before him. Elisha must have felt pretty much the same. He was faced with a daunting task. He was being thrown in at the deep end of the proverbial swimming pool. And it's therefore significant as well as symbolic that Elijah, in affirming Elisha as his successor, the cloak is thrown around him, as if to embrace him and welcome him as a close confidant. And when we embrace someone or we give them a hug, we are in effect saying that we love, value and welcome them for who they are. Let me say this. Do we as individuals, do we in our churches welcome those who are younger in years in terms of encouraging them to serve alongside us in ministry? Or do we squander the raw potential that is there by failing to give them a measure of real responsibility? Are we welcoming in our actions as well as in our attitude? Just as Elijah welcomed Elisha. But Elijah also walked with Elisha. It was one of those wet July summer Saturday mornings when a brave group of us assembled at Troon Harbour to begin a sponsored walk which would take us right round the bay to the Heads of Ayr, some 15 miles distant. Now, my feet have never been the same since, but that's another story. But what I want to say is that during a walk with a friend, you often get the opportunity to speak with them at length. You find out what they're up to, what their plans are, what their hopes and what their dreams are, how things are going at work or at university. In other words, when you walk with someone, you get to know them and develop in your relationship. That's the picture we see in 2 Kings 2, 1 to 11, if you read the passage, as Elijah walked with Elijah from Gilgal to Bethel, then back to Jericho and towards the Jordan. Now, if you dig out your Bible Atlas, you'll see that that route probably involved a distance of around about 30 miles all in. And we read a little of the dialogue that took place in 2 Kings 2 between them on the journey. And although it's not recorded for us fully, it is likely that that time was used by Elijah to share with Elisha the benefit of his wisdom and of his experience, and to pour into him the life and the leadership skills necessary for that great task that was ahead. Are you walking with those who are younger than he is in your church, in your circles? Have you developed your relationship with them to the extent that you are able to get alongside them? Are you able to express care and concern, not just to those younger in years, but to those older in years too? I remember when my grandmother resident in a nursing home in Kirkham, a little village nestling between Preston and Lytham St Anne's in Lancashire, passed away. As with the loss of any loved one, there was at a human and emotional level the pain, the sense of loss and the tears. It's often when you've been bereaved that you can truly understand what bereavement really is. Just over a week later, a friend contacted me to let me know their grandfather had died. Their words said a lot. Quote, "I know you will understand. You are the only one that will." Why do I share that with you? Well, until my grandmother died, I didn't really know what bereavement was. Not really. Yes, I could offer condolences and sympathy to people, I could pray, I could help as best I could, but I didn't really know how people felt. Not really. And it's only through my own experience, it's only through walking through the valley with the bereaved and with others who are going through difficulties and problems and challenges that I've been able to get along with them. Elijah walked with Elisha. He cultivated a relationship with him. Are we walking with those who are younger in years and cultivating a good and godly relationship with them? Finally and briefly, Elijah warned Elisha. Being a leader today, and I speak from experience, is not a bed of roses. Being a leader or to lead any ministry today is not a role for shrinking violets. Often leaders are in at the very sharp end of some difficult and testing circumstances where wisdom and grace are critical commodities. And like many in leadership, I've had to deal with discouragement and doubt, necessitating that dependence on God. In 2 Kings 2:23-24, later on in the passage, we read that Elisha, when leaving Jericho one day, after Elijah had gone off the scene, was jeered by over 40 young people. In fact, they called him a bald head, Baldy. Elijah, like the rest of us, would, I'm sure, have been shaking in his shoes, fearful for what might happen to him. It was 40-1, yet Elijah took his stand for the Lord and was able, in the name of the Lord, to deal with him. Could it be, and I think it probably was, that because Elijah had walked with Elijah and had invested in him, shaped him, trained him, guided him, and warned him that the future would not be plain sailing, that as a leader he would face opposition, that Elisha, as a younger leader, was then able to take his stand and deal with a difficult situation. We need to instill within those who are younger in years, as we tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, also to instill spiritual backbone, to help them understand they will face discouragement, they will face defeat, they will face criticism. We've much to learn from the life and the partnership of Elijah and Elisha. So whether you be an older leader today or whether you be a younger leader, allow God through his word to speak to you from this passage in 2 Kings 2. May God bless you.